What's up, everybody? My name is Brandon Clements. This is going to be a new episode of Dead Dialect. We haven't done one in a while, but this one's going to be fun. Stick around. It's got Mark Austin on. That's it.
I'll be on.
Holy shit, because how long has it been since we've done a podcast?
Oh, man, months. It's been months. I feel...
Turn you down, first of all.
Okay.
You
So that sounded great.
loud motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. Anyway. Well, just even having this whole setup, like, in here, it's been a long time. So,
Right.
like, just having it put together and sitting down and finally doing a podcast.
See how bad his mixer's been in a backpack so long. It's just been thrown around. All these
Yeah.
levels are fucked up, and you're just, like, in my ear, and it's awful. Terrible. I don't like hearing you this much. This is weird because I feel like I'm not used to doing this anymore. And we did it for so long. Like, we were doing 3 podcasts a week, and we've just been so busy. And
If we took
like,
a break, it'd be like a month.
Right. And we haven't done anything in a while. So I don't know how this is going to go. I want to say it's going to go well. But the good news is that we made sure that when we did come back, because obviously we'll get into stuff we've been doing. It's been busy past couple of months. But we made sure that when we did come back, we would come back to someone that has plenty to talk about and someone that we've wanted to talk to for a long time. And by the way, sorry it took this fucking long.
Yeah, man.
First of all, it took way too long because I've asked you multiple times, and then there was a couple times I was like, fuck, we can't do it today.
Every time we put a short list together, you've been at the top. Or,
Right.
You know, somewhere up there.
So
Finally.
we should have a good show today, but I don't know how I'm going to do because I've just been so off my game lately. I've been focusing on making a TV show inside of a city bus, and my life sucks.
Oh.
I know.
So we're basically asking you to carry our podcast for us.
We need your help.
So we need your help.
We need your help.
I got you guys.
Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool, right? We're in a studio.
A glorious
Yeah.
multi-million dollar.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how you guys got this place. This is legit.
Dude, hookups, hustling.
Yeah.
I mean, what can I say?
Whoring yourself out, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
Sponsors.
You're the guy when I first started playing in Tuphelia, when I was in my math rock band. It's fucking nuts. Unbelievable. When I was in my math rock band, and you're trying to hustle and you're trying to be a musician, you're asking everyone, who do I need to talk to? Like, who's the person that I need to get to come to my shows? Help me out. You're always at the top of that list. Always. And so I'd heard your name so many times before I even knew what you looked like. And then, of course, you appear as this almost caricature in a sense, because people are,
I'll take that as a compliment.
That's definitely in a compliment. Yeah, I mean that in a complimentary way. So it's very interesting to me to now be at this point and to have this conversation with you, because I'm almost at a different place with you in my mind. Because when it started out, it was very much like, how do I get this guy's attention? How do I get him to like my music? Because this is the person, right? Then when you start covering the scene, you start talking to the people that, frankly, we've had Cam on, I don't know how many times now.
Right.
You realize that that's just so the wrong way to go into any kind of interaction, into any kind of creative effort, output. So just to start this off, my first question to you is, what is it like to constantly be that person that everyone's like, come see my band, come see my band, come see my band? Is it hard to kind of sift through when people are trying to genuinely have an interaction with you and when they're just trying to get you to come see, their band?
I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about that. I mean, the Suffers are probably a good example. I mean, at the time I was knee deep busy with the Tontons and traveling all over and doing. They were doing what the Suffers are doing to some extent. I mean,
Right.
Hundreds of shows a year all over North America. And Cam came up to me at a show and said, "Excuse me," it's actually at a Tauntaun show at the Fish Shells, and she said, "I'm making this band with some friends of mine, and when we're done, you're going to manage us." And she didn't ask me; she just told me.
Super bold. Of
Yeah,
course.
I think she kind of knew it even then. I mean, that was, and I think we're coming up on like 4 or 5 years now, and so, it's. I feel terrible because I used to be the most responsive person that I knew. Like legitimately, if you emailed or called me, I didn't miss
You're
a
right
call.
on
I didn't
it.
miss.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Well, I was an accountant for 13 years before I did this, and so I was in front of a computer, in front of a phone all day long, kind of hoping to interact as much as possible because accounting was boring as hell.
Yeah. Need
But-
something to do.
But now it's like I'm coming up on like 75,000 unread emails. I mean, I've got 1,000 unread text messages.
75,000.
Yeah, hundreds of voicemails that I haven't listened to, and it hurts my heart, And I try to be, I try to be as receptive as possible, but you can't help everybody, and that's something I'm trying to come to
Right.
terms with. I was having panic attacks in my sleep thinking about the number of people I hadn't responded to that were at the top of the list. So it's hard to even get to the top 20, much less the top 75,000. So, but with that said, I mean, I kind of want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that helps everybody that he can possibly help all the time, and it's just there's not enough hours in the day.
So how did you get from just being an accountant to being kind of what we've already described here? I mean, how do you even to having 75,000 unread emails?
I mean, we're talking 13 years too. I mean, you were an accountant long enough to kind of know what the future was going to look like.
Right.
If I keep doing this, so
how does that happen?
It's a long word story, and I'll try to abbreviate as much
Sure.
as possible. But I mean, I was raised relatively poor, and I had great grades.
Hey,
I was,
right.
right. Well, I'm from like dirt trailer park, rural Louisiana kind of thing, and had great grades. I was really studious, and I realized that I wouldn't go anywhere if I didn't get an education, and so I got really serious about it. And then I got hired for my first job in Houston for Arthur Anderson. It was an accounting job. If you guys are familiar with Enron and all that stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
okay. Fun.
Dirty tale to tell here, but my first job out of college was as an auditor for Arthur Anderson, and my only client was Enron.
Oh,
Yeah, so that goes way back. It predates most of you people, so it's not that big a deal anymore. But I mean, it's tragic, and it was miserable and lots of things. But I came out the other side of it, and I did accounting for a long time to the point that like I was director of accounting at a $1 billion oil and gas company, and I realized somewhere in that last couple of years that money was not the job. My job, it didn't drive me. I thought it was supposed to because I was raised so poor. I thought if I get money, all the problems will go away, and that's just not how it works in the world. I know people say it, but no one's ever going to listen. You're going to actually go try to get rich and then realize that's not what brings you happiness.
Right.
Somewhere along that way, in the middle of the accounting career, I bought a camera, and I started taking pictures. And the first band I really photographed professionally, I had been sneaking cameras into concerts forever, but I mean taking like garbage, point and shoot stuff. And I bought a really nice camera, and I went to some shows. I convinced a band on the an up-and-coming band, that they should let me photograph them. And they agreed, and they liked my photos. And within a week, they were like, "Can you go on tour with us? Like, what are you doing for the next couple of weeks?"
Had you shot before? Were you into
I
photography?
I was always into photography, but I was so poor we didn't own cameras. Like I just took
Right.
classes on photography. So I studied Rolling Stone magazine like it was the Bible.
So
as
in
a
no
child.
way were you a photographer?
No,
Okay.
no. I just had an eye for it. I mean, some people genuinely have a natural eye for it, and some people genuinely do not.
Yeah.
No matter
Right.
what camera you buy, you just will never take a great photograph. And so anyway, I was an aspiring photographer, and that's how I sold myself to them. And within a week, they wrote. I mean, I shot 2 shows, and I gave them the photographs. They were on tour, and they said, "Hey, what are you doing for the next couple of weeks? Can you follow the band and take pictures?" And I'm like, "Sure." I was a 27 or 28-year-old accountant. Pretty boring life.
And let's go.
But I was going to lots of concerts. I was already trying to go to like ACL, and I was trying to go to festivals and things. And anyway, I went on the road with this band, and while I was out with them, they kind of broke, and people started calling, wanting like photographs. And their people were like, "Hey, you want to, Rolling Stone wants to buy some photographs from you." And I was like, I had a camera for like less than 2 weeks, and I said, "Well, they're not for sale," because I didn't need the money at the time. I was like, "It's not about the money. I want their opportunity. I want to go shoot stuff for them. I want to shoot for Rolling Stone and Spin and Pace and Village Voice and all this stuff." And they all bought into it. And within a couple of weeks, I'm a contributing photographer to Spin Magazine. And within months, I'm at Bonnaroo, at Coachella's and Lollapaloozas and Jazz Fest and Voodoo Fest and ACLs.
Were you still an accountant at that point?
Absolutely. So on the weekends, I started traveling. I was working for Deloitte & Touche, and I started traveling. I had clients. I became a consultant, and I was teaching companies how not to be the next Enron because of my experience.
Because you've been through, yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a weird. No one knows this story. Music people in Houston don't know this story.
Yeah.
This is very. I probably shouldn't be telling it. All this St. Arnold's has got me looping.
Hey.
So on the weekend, so I was traveling for
Right.
work, and so Deloitte and Touche would fly me to New York or fly me to Denver or Florida or whatever. Instead of coming home on the weekends, I would fly to Bonnaroo on their nickel. Like I would have my flight go to and from Coachella, to and from whatever. I mean, I went to everything, brother, for 10 years.
Oh.
It became a 10-year career. I have permanent exhibits in the Hard Rock in Las Vegas. I've been in Rolling Stone dozens of times. I mean, like, stuff that I wasn't even planning to do happened because I got so serious about it. I was everywhere all the time.
But you're still literally working as
Monday
an
through
accountant.
Friday. I would keep a suit in my back in my suitcase.
And
I would,
is that how was that juxtaposition?
It's tough because as a festival photographer, you're trying to cover most of it.
Right.
So I'm on the ground with a 30-pound back of cameras on my back, and I'm running stage to stage for 72 hours straight and editing through the night. Like I would fall asleep on my laptop and send photos through because they had to be up the next morning.
I know it.
And then I would go back to work in New York or Denver or wherever on Monday.
And you do your soul sucking job.
Yeah.
Right.
At this point, is there a goal in mind? Like, do you want to just become a permanent? Or
Yeah. Are you?
No. I was always like, I'm never going to make money at this. I was making really good money as an accountant.
So it's
And
like a labor of love or like a
it was,
passion.
yeah.
Wow.
Did you consciously know that though, or was it just like, what am I just? I'm just doing this. I'm doing this for A, B, or C, or because some people just do. They don't really have an end goal. I mean, I'm just trying to find out how much of this when you're just kind of head first jumping into something, are you anticipating where this might go? Are you trying to look for an out from the accounting world, or is it just kind of something you're?
I never thought I'd get too far away from it. I never wanted to take it that seriously, and I was hustling so hard, and people were like, we're not going to let you work for free. We're going to pay you something." And within the first few years, I was making like enough money to live on taking pictures on the weekends. I mean, I shot for every Village Voice magazine, all of them: LA Weekly, San Francisco Weekly, Houston, Dallas, Denver, you name it. I was shooting galleries on top of galleries. I mean, I shot a few covers of the Houston Press. I shot, I don't know. I mean, Spin had my stuff every month. To the point that like I was getting contracts in Houston where I could go out. Like even at some point I was shooting party pics for the Houston Chronicle. Like I would work a 10, 12-hour day as an accountant, and then I would go out at night to a party,
shoot the party.
and do party pics for $75 just to stay in good graces with the Chronicle. But I was nuts, dude. I was going bonkers. Like really was, but I loved it. And I didn't even realize now, just saying it out loud, I realize now that it was a passion because I didn't even care about money. I would come home, there'd be a check in the mailbox. I'm like, cool, whatever. Because I was doing so well as an accountant, I didn't need it. But it led me to other things. So what happened was I started shooting around Houston. And at the time I was like, man, there's garbage bands. There's no bands here.
Because there wasn't a lot, right?
There was some. You had to dig them up. I mean, Tiago Raja and the Million Year Dance guys were doing really well.
I remember those cats, yeah.
Arthur Yoria and Tony Castillo. I'm trying to think of that band, Peekaboo Theory. I mean, there was lots of really fun bands, all different genres. It was so diverse. There wasn't a genre. I never really got into country. I tried to shoot some country guys, but then anyway, all of a sudden, it was during the MySpace days, and at some point, I was trying to have every band I had found to have their profile pic to be my photo. So I could have them. That was my goal. That sounds cheesy, but I was like, that way people will ask where did the photo come from.
Yeah.
So I was just calling every band and saying, "Hey, can I come take pictures of you?" And so someone reached out to me. It was a Studemont project. I had found them and was really interested in them. And they're like, the lead guitar player was like, "Hey, I'm in this other band and we're about to put out an EP. You should come to our show. It'll be our first release." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll come. It's $5 to get in." And you got their EP. And it was in a warehouse on the east side, and it was the Tontons. And I've still got those photos, which is crazy. It's 2007, and I was floored. I really was just like, I cannot believe I just paid $5 to see this. Because at the time, I was spending $250 twice a year to go see Dave Matthews at the Woodlands, and I thought that was living,
Yeah.
I really hadn't gotten into the festival thing just yet. I had just started shooting in 05, like March of 05. And so I shot all these pictures, and I'll show them to you in a minute. I got them on my phone, but... I fell in love with that CD. I went home. It's called Seeing Stars. I put it in my car, and I'm like, I listened to it. It's 5 songs. I listened to it for 6 months. I was in head over heels, and so I started reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, how can I help?" They had a manager. They had a label. They had all this stuff. And so eventually, I just took on more and more responsibilities for them. Like we would just hang, and they'd be like, "Hey, do you know where we can get T-shirts made? Do you know where we can get this made?" And I was just like, "No, but I'll Google it and I'll figure it out." Because I've got all day long as an accountant in front of a laptop with nothing to do, and so I started teaching myself how to do it. I mean, eventually at one point, Ozzy was just like, are you our manager? People keep asking what you do. And I'm like, well, I do everything.
I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess I'm your manager. It was a funny conversation because I never thought I would even ask to be their manager. So by their second record, I mean, like, we're full steam, and I'm spending an exorbitant amount of time during my day job hours, like, messing with them. You know?
Was this something, I mean, is this, I feel like there's got to be some seed of this in your upbringing, though, because a lot of it seems very unlikely, and a lot of it honestly reminds me of some of the stuff that we've fallen into in this kind of in this sense that you're taking on what's right in front of you without even really knowing what you're taking on.
There's a couple of really great stories that do tie in, and it's I didn't even think about them until later. But my brother was a DJ coming up, and even as a kid, we shared a bedroom, and he was always listening to radio. I mean, like, music was on. My parents were into music. My brother was into music. None of us were musically inclined to play instruments or anything.
Fucking Nat. I'm sorry. It's like, and I know you see it too. He's like right here.
It's one.
Oh, yeah, just one. Is one piece of shit. Okay. Anyway,
so as a young gent living in rural Louisiana, I had a point where I loved going to the library. We had a small public library. My mother would drop me off at the public library on Saturdays, and sometimes during the week. But I wouldn't read books. I would read magazines, and I had 3 magazines I would read cover to cover. It was Sports Illustrated, Kung Fu, and
Kung Fu
and
magazine.
well, mostly because of the order sheet on the back. I wanted a pair of nunchucks so bad. She wouldn't let me have any of that stuff. And then the third magazine was Rolling Stone. And I would read them cover to cover, and I would spend the whole day there. And I would go look for books. I read, like, Hammer of the Gods, the Led Zeppelin biography, and I would dig for music books. I knew more about Led Zeppelin without ever having heard a single song by them. In fact, there was a commercial for the remasters that used to come on TBS, and that was the first time I ever heard a Led Zeppelin song. And it blew my head completely off.
I
was
imagine.
like, this is what these guys sound like. Because this is like the late 80s, early 90s. I'm reading Rolling Stone cover to cover. Yeah. And eventually the the librarian... So part of that, I was studying photography. I didn't even know it. Rock and roll photography. They're the greatest photographers. Annie Leibovitz and Denny Clinch and all these guys shooting.
It's some of the hardest shit to shoot.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's more or less the portraiture stuff. I think is the hardest because you're sitting quietly. They're not able to engage. There's no lighting per se.
Yeah, okay.
But one day the librarian said, "Hey, you're the only person that reads these 3 magazines, by the way, and I'm about to throw out the periodicals. We have 7 years of back editions." And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, I taught myself the history of rock and roll by reading Rolling Stone. And I called my mother and said, hey, I need you to bring the truck today because I've got some boxes of magazines. And I mean, we loaded the back of the truck up. And I didn't come out of my room for months, months and months. And I got to where I'd cut the photos out and study them. And like every other teenager, my wall was covered in Metallica and Skid Row posters and stuff. But my brother went on to become a really well-known DJ an hour away at a really big radio station. And so... eventually he's like taking me to concerts, and I'm listening to my brother on the radio. He's bringing me CDs before they come out and things like that. Like I was always that kid that was striving to have the new stuff before anybody else, even though I was dirt poor. Yeah. I'd mow yards to go
where you could. I mean, where you could. That's what you.
But you're also very much a part of that part of the music industry that is kind of unseen to a lot of people, especially if you grow up poor. You're not going to go to radio stations or get early releases or see bands do these. You don't get this opportunity to see those things taken off the pedestal that they're kind of presented to you on.
Yep.
So maybe that was what had because what to me is most interesting about what you're saying is that you kind of fell into this, but clearly you were prepared for it, like extremely prepared.
Yeah.
And that's what's most interesting about what you're saying. So. I mean, you reading these like issues or how you said 7 years worth of like backlog.
Yeah, but then I went even deeper after that. I
was
like,
of course.
I need to keep digging and keep finding. But I mean, I decorated my school lockers and stuff. But I mean, I grew up in a house where music was played, and I mean, you don't have to be rich to have Elvis Presley 45s I remember we had Pet Sounds on 8-track. I mean, like I remember these vividly, having these records around, and my parents constantly playing music. So it was just I don't think I ever. I don't know. It did fall onto me a little bit, but I accepted it, and it was something I could do without spending money. I really enjoy music. So
was there like maybe a conscious turn in your mind where you're like, okay, I've kind of unofficially adopted this band. Now I'm going to do this, or how did that kind of happen?
I had disposable income, and they didn't, and I was like, well, let's maybe I can help give you a leg up by not waiting years for you to save money to put out the next record, or if you need to go record something or you need new photos or whatever. And then I started taking their photos and we started talking about hiring people to do music videos. So I did some financing, but it wasn't long into it. I mean, the band early on, that release party had 300 or 400 people at it, and I can't remember a time they've had a show where there wasn't hundreds of people, and it's been 10 years now this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were doing, at one point early on, they were booking themselves. Omar would call Osley directly and say, "Hey, do you want to play at Mango's next weekend?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "We're going to pay you a beer tab," things like that. We're just like, "Okay, cool." And then I would show up and I'm like, "There's 300 people here. How are you? How much money did you guys make?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, we got a great beer tab, and he's going to kick us some." What the, So the accountant in me started turning. And I tell people this is where a lot of the tide changes for artists that I work with on this level, is that I apply a Type A personality, like very organized, very businesslike, to a Type B industry where that's art. And and artists aren't necessarily that organized or business oriented.
Especially musicians.
They want to make art, and that's a lot of what I try to do for my artists. Even though it's harder, it's easier said than done. But I try to give them that outlet to not be concerned with the day to day business stuff and just focus on being artists.
And creating.
Yeah, I say a lot of times like, well, I don't think Mick Jagger's designing his T-shirts, but shit, maybe he is now. I think about it. I mean, Beyonce's intimately involved in those levels with her business, so. I'm not saying I would remove them from it, but it definitely gives them an opportunity to take a deep breath when they're not having to take all these business calls.
It's almost more important at a lower level, right? When you're trying to, really make it up there and get up, you kind of need as much time as possible to create and, hone yourself. And so at what point did you, because, obviously I think you're crowning jewel in terms of, you're maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the Suffers, right? This is the band that, holy shit, like it's kind of Houston's baby now in a lot of ways, what's happened with them. So I want to kind of get into the steps of that band, because I've talked about it with Cam, but I don't know, was the first huge step, was it Letterman? Was it, where was the turning point there? Because maybe for me, I don't know if I'm assuming, but maybe that for you as well was a turning point for you. You're like, holy shit, this is real. This is something that's, I don't know.
This is another perspective we're talking about. Like, you're helping them, I'm sure you were there every step of the way, hooking up Letterman and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny enough, I had absolutely nothing to do with Letterman. They're super talented. They're on another level talented. We all can agree to that, I think. And they're also a lot more driven because they're probably older, more mature, and like they get it that this is, you only get a few shots at this. But they're also very experienced. Where the Tontons had zero experience when we started doing it. We grew up together, learning a lot of this. Like who designs T-shirts, who designs posters? Like how do you book a show in Raleigh, North Carolina? Those are all things we learned. So I came into the Suffers relationship having learned a lot, recent knowledge, knowing I now knew promoters in 50 cities. I booked the first 250 Tauntaun shows myself before we got an agent. So they're very skilled, they're very talented, they're next level. All the things were there, but there's a lot of bands that have that that have the skill and the albums and the music and stuff that should succeed. We all know bands that we're like, I don't understand how this band's not huge.
Yeah.
Vody's right there right now. Like there's no question. They've written the songs, the album is made. Can the thing happen to them to get them into the next thing? But some of the, obviously Letterman was what really broke it open for us, because it added this huge air of legitimacy to what they were doing. It was now like, okay, it's not just Houston people that love this. It's going to be there's people nationwide that are going to love this, and they got the chance to be exposed. But a lot of what they benefited from early was I didn't have to make 500 phone calls to agents to find the agent that should be their agent. I made one. I sent one email. Ended up sending it to like 3 people, but one guy replied that I really wanted in 12 minutes. And he said, "What's the deal with this band?" He's like, "Have you sent this to anyone else?" I said, "No." He said, "Don't. I want this band." He didn't even see him. Had never seen him live. I had only sent him an email and said, "Listen," he was the Tontons booking agent. And I said, I know you have too many bands, but I want you to check this band out, just to give me a recommendation of another agent. And he heard 12 minutes. He got through 2.5 songs. And he stopped it and called and said, dude, and we only saved phone calls during the day for like emergency stuff. Like,
so is that just a good contact, or
I had been working to get to him for years.
Sure.
And there's some fun Tauntaun stories about how we even landed this guy. He was an amazing agent, but he said, "I'll take him on right now." And the band had no aspiration to tour at that point. And I called and said, "We need a meeting." I was like, "You guys have a booking agent now?" And they're like, "What?" We're just going to tour around Texas. I'm like,
No, you're not.
No, you're not. This is going big.
Oh, man.
And so same thing happened with the PR. They're like, well, I was like, you need a publicist if we're going to start releasing music. And they're like, well, who would we have? I'm like, I got the person. Let me call her. Send her the music. She's like, yep, done, signed. So it went from Tontons having 500 phone calls to like 1, so it went from this slow climb to like, when you get the team around you, I mean, getting outside of Houston and playing, smart shows and having your releases happen on rollingstone.com and NPR. I mean, that's the game changer. And then we said, so the agent agreed. I said, look, let's tour them up to CMJ. I did a lot of stuff at CMJ back then. And I was like, let's just book them 4 or 5 showcases, have them do their thing. Let's lose some money, but let's go get seen. And the last night I had to fly home because the Tontons had a show. At the time, they were still killing it, ahead of the Suffers. And a friend of mine called and he said, hey, dude, I actually called him. I was like, hey, can you hang around and do this last Suffer show? I got to head back to Houston. Can you watch out for them? He manages Wild Child and Ben Queller and stuff. He's a good friend of mine. He's like, yeah, I'll go watch. And he texted me at some point. He goes, hey, man, don't trip out, but I just met a buyer from Letterman on the street outside of the venue. He asked me for a light for his cigarette. And we started chatting, so I invited him in to check the band out, and he's flipping out. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, yeah, whatever, big deal, whatever. I was like, nothing will come of this, whatever. And then Cam called me at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and she's like, dude, I just talked to this dude who says he's from Letterman for like 2 hours. He's buying me drinks. He's telling me he's going to get us. And at this time, Letterman had already announced, like, I'm finished in May.
Right.
And so I was like, there's no fucking way we're getting on the show. And
especially on the last week, right?
Like a week later. Well, we did it March 20.
Was it? Not, I thought it was like really close to the end.
Yeah, it was March 30th, and he finished May 15th or something.
Geez, still really
it was
close.
Like 20 something bands left to play, and so the guy called me like a week later, and we had just finished our cycle with the publicist because we're like, we have nothing to do right now. We're not at CMJ, and he called and he said, hey, man, this is Roman. I'm with David Letterman. I saw the band the other night, and I'd like to talk to your publicist. And I said, well, I'm the band's manager, so you can talk to me. And he goes, no, I want to talk to the publicist. I was like, all right, well, let me get some information over to you. I'll fire it over the wall. And he goes, okay, cool, call me back. I had to call the publicist and literally had called them the day before and said, hey, it was a fun cycle with you guys. Called him back the next day and said, hey, about that, I'm going to need you to get back on retainer and, take this phone call. And they're like, what the fuck? I'm like, yes, what the fuck? He actually called. And even then, it was still like, this may not happen.
This is not going to happen.
And dude, it went on for months. That was around like October, November.
No way.
And we didn't finalize it till like January sometime. And even then, we had no music. There was no music release. They had released a 7-inch the 2 years before
That's
that.
So crazy. That never happens. That's the thing. That never fucking happens.
I mean, I think it happens more than you know, but at this point, they beat all the odds. They're unsigned. They had not toured. They had released no music. I mean, like, there was no reason this band should have played. Because after they got it, dude, labels started calling me nonstop, talking about, how'd you do that? And I'm like, man, when you're good, dude. And that's not being funny. Like, they were just that damn good that the show blew this dude away. And then it kind of falls like dominoes once you get it. I mean, we got Kimmel after that and Daily Show after that. And at one point, we actually kind of stopped conversations with Conan and with Colbert because we were just like, we don't have any more money to market these appearances. Like, we can go be on your show, but you really need to, like, it's like releasing a record. You need to promote it and do all these things. And we're like, we just need to chill. Because this record's not, maybe we can save it and get it the next time. And they all agreed, like, okay, when the next record comes out, call us.
Wow.
So we're calling them right now.
God, that's crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's, oh, man. So,
yeah, man, I remember when that happened. Because you're talking about the era of legitimacy that it gave, the band. And I remember that up to that point, the Suffers was like, yeah, it's the Houston band, and I've seen them at festivals and everywhere. But when they finally were on Letterman, I remember being like, holy shit. Like,
almost shaped everyone up in a way, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
This is real?
They are setting a standard for sure, like a bar or for, Houston music in general. I mean, everybody looks at the Suffers and the success they've been having and how good they are.
But this is all kind of happening to you at the same time. This is
for sure. This is my first late night show.
This is definitely not something that you are experienced with or know how to do. Obviously something you're prepared for, but so, I mean, did you were, of course, there, right, in New York with them and everything. What was that like to be walking in and just, was it surreal? Like, holy shit.
It was a blur because it was a pretty freaky day. I'd gotten a relationship with Sour Patch Candy, and they have these houses. People
What?
don't.
That's my favorite
Yeah.
candy.
This is pretty trippy, right? So they have these houses in like 3 or 4 different cities, and they're nondescript. You don't really tell anybody. It's like Fight Club. You don't talk
Yeah.
about it. But if you end up finding somebody that that knows about it, then I'm actually gonna they have these houses and they put up artists for free.
Sour Patch.
Sour Patch candies. I'll show you a
Like-
picture in a minute, but
The company that makes Sour Patch Kids.
How's the
candy.
house look? Does it look like
it's
Sour Patch?
It's a multi-million-dollar brownstone in Brooklyn.
Oh, but it's not like Sour Patched out.
No, I mean inside it's got some like fun lights and
Oh.
there's candy everywhere.
Oh,
I was
okay,
gonna
cool.
Say, that's
All
what I
right,
want.
that's all
yeah, I want the candy.
Yeah, and they stock the house with like fresh food and all this stuff, and like I convinced them to let the band stay there. And we stayed for like 4 or 5 days. At that point, we had no money, and dude, to stay in a nice, comfortable setting with that many people, I
The
mean,
Sour Patch house.
yeah, we've done it there. They had one in Austin. They closed last year. They have one in L.A. And I want to say somebody told me they're opening one in Nashville, but you can't geolocate yourself. They don't want you bringing friends over there. It's like really, it has a recording studio in it, so you can go down and record music. It's pretty trippy, but
Why?
Yeah, why exactly
Wait,
do they do that?
why?
you know, I no clue, man. It's like organic marketing, I guess. Like they,
Weird.
you know, because it's me here talking about it right now.
Right, yeah.
And you're like, damn, Sour
Yeah.
Patch is cooler than I thought.
There's someone in the company that's
Yeah,
really
that's just down. Yeah, they're like music fans. They want to help people out.
Well, that's what I
mean,
found out about Volcom. Like when I found out
Yeah.
they have a record label and
Oh,
all these
yeah.
like
Fat
weird. I was
Tony-
like,
Fat
what?
Tony's made
Yeah.
several releases on
Yeah,
Volcom.
it's
Yeah.
super crazy. I was like, wait, you handle this like it's just your company out of your basement still.
And then you meet them, you're like, oh, it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a bunch of dudes that just
but just
want people to create
skateboarding,
and-
cool
yeah.
dudes. Yeah.
So the publicist brought him to town. We did some press a few days leading up. We chilled at the house. We get the next morning like 7 in the morning. We go in, and the thing is, they didn't allow us any tickets. They gave us 2 or 4 tickets, I forget. At one point, Bun B called me and was like, hey, I'm coming up for the show. I'm like, man, I can't get the wives in. I don't have a ticket. I don't get to watch the show.
Yeah.
That's a for real thing. I was like, dude, have your publicist. Here's the contact. Call them, but they're going to tell you no. And they did. They told him no thanks. You know, like
Shit,
shit like
Bun
that.
B. Wow.
And so because it was one of the last shows, it only holds 200 people.
Yeah.
And so we finagled, and I eventually got throughout the morning. Like we used Neil Patrick Harris was on the show, and I was talking to the back door person, and she's like, "Look, he's got like 4 guest spots. If they don't show up, you can have them." Because I had wives. All the wives came up.
He's in PH's.
We used NPH's spots, dude. Yeah, for real. The wives came up and they sat in line. A couple of them got tickets, a couple of them didn't, so we got them in. And eventually, in the dressing room, it's me, the agent, and the publicist, and we can't go in and watch. We can sit in the dressing room, but we can't go watch it in the live room. I'm like, dude, I have worked my ass off for this. I was pretty bummed. I was like, you know what though, I'd rather be watching it with you guys than anybody.
So you're having to watch the screen.
Yeah, we're watching through the screen, which was great. And they, at one point, the producer came back and said, "All right, you guys come on," and walked us out to the very back of the room. She goes, "You can stand at the very, very back of this wall. As soon as that last note of the song's on, you guys
just
have to
fuck
get
off."
up."
Yeah.
So
Oh my
we only got to watch the song, which was crazy, awesome, of course. But you know, it's funny because we couldn't hear anything. It's almost like a closed studio on the stage. Like everybody's and the band's wearing most of the band's wearing in ears, or a couple of them were at the time. So Dave is on a lapel pin, and you can't really. He's just talking like this. He's not like, "Hey, everybody, that was great."
Yeah,
you
he
know?
doesn't need-
He's
yeah.
like talking like, "Hey, how good was that? Like, if you can't do this, get out of the business." And we couldn't hear any, and we had been studying. There's articles written about the Letterman bump. Like if he says good things about you, if he says these certain good things about you, you shoot up. If he says something like "nice drums," which is a thing, if you go on YouTube,
Yeah.
Oh, he has nothing else
Yeah,
to say
the
about
drums.
it.
that reel of nice drums or
Are
whatever.
those yours? Nice
Yeah,
drums. Are those
exactly.
yours? Yeah.
That's a killer.
I didn't realize
that'll
that.
kill
Is
you.
that bad? I thought that
That's
was
him. Supposedly, that's him trying not to say something negative. That's him just saying
Oh.
something.
But that's not a real thing, or is that just like speculation?
It's speculation.
Okay,
It's always been my
it's
dream.
come through. Like,
It's
There's
always been my
studies.
dream to
There's
get
studies
that.
and studies about it, but
Studies.
there's one big article I think Esquire or somebody put out because St. Paul and the Broken Bones, like that was their big breakout. That Dave like rambled. He went on for like 2 or 3 minutes about how amazing they were.
And of course, he gave Cam a kiss.
Well,
on
he
the
said,
cheek.
"If you can't do this, get out of the business." That's the first thing he said.
what
"If
he
you can't do this,
said.
get out of the business," which is a sticker on the front of that vinyl I just gave you. We love that quote. And so he anyway, he grabs her, and because they had told her like, "Look, if he doesn't touch you, don't touch him," you know, yada yada, that kind of thing. And so he reaches and grabs her and shakes her hand, and she won't admit whether he twirled her or she twirled herself. But anyway, she spun him around, and like she had him spin her around, and then he hugged her and then kissed her. And we're like, holy shit, we didn't know we were supposed to touch her. You know, like, you know, it was one of those things where we were all on, but the band says they don't remember the performance. Like it was a blur.
It's just- yeah.
It was 3 minutes. The song was 3 minutes and 47 seconds long. And they had been rehearsing another song. Peanuts was the single. And the band gets in the van to drive to New York. And they've been rehearsing the shit out of that song down to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And they had it nailed. And And then the producer called and she said, "Hey, I got some news to share with you. We don't want you to do that song. We want you to do this other song, Guan." And we're like, I was like, "Lady, they're in the van and they're driving through, like, straight through to New York, and they don't have any time to rehearse.
Yeah.
And it's going to take that to shave off 20 seconds of the song." And I called the band. I'm like, "Hey guys, I got some bad news." And they're like, "What the fuck? We just spent 3 days rehearsing this." So they drive straight through the night. They drive through the night with the last night, so they get to New York, and we rented them a rehearsal space, and they went and rehearsed like 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then
Knocked
got
it
out the
out.
next.
And a band that size too, everybody's got to be on point. You know.
Well, they don't play around. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so
Yeah.
they'll cut you off. They'll go to commercial.
that's embarrassing.
So the band goes up, and there's a lot more to the story, but they went up, they rolled in, and they rehearsed it like 3 or 4 times, and I'll never forget the producer she introduced herself to me on the 3rd or 4th rehearsal. She walks over and she goes, "You're Mark, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Dave is going to flip out." And I was like, "Oh shit, is that a good flip out or a bad flip out?" She goes, "It's so good. You have no idea. This is his shit. This is what he loves." And I was like, "That's
Oh
good
my
to hear."
God.
And I'm not even sure I told the band. I was like, "I don't know if I'm no pressure. We're just talking about random bullshit. Like I'm not trying to have a stressful day." But they went out and crushed, and it happened just like she said. She called it, and I was like, "Man, it was a huge relief." We went to a bar that night and had a screening of it, and all of our friends came. It was we all cried. We like
Good
babies.
times.
It
Yeah,
was,
dude.
Good
lots of
times.
whiskey and lots of tears.
Yeah, it was so bizarre waking up that next morning because I didn't watch it live, but I woke up the next morning and had been posted, you know, and I was just like, I can't believe this happened. Like
Yeah.
I can't
I think
actually
you're the one that told me.
believe
Yeah, but
that this happened. Like it
We
was
had the
just
same
such
kind
I mean, it made perfect sense. But then it was like such a fucking crazy song. Well, because at the time, were they still at the docks at that point?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was about 3 rooms down from them. So I was still playing music, and I was in this like crazy math rock band, and we'd stop, and whenever we'd stop, it was always just
Come on, let me cook for you,
in the back,
yeah,
yeah.
you hear Cam.
And they were killing it. Uh-oh. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, he's going to be here. So I would be at the docks, and I'd always hear the Suffers in the back, and I think we even heard them kind of rehearsing around that time. Like them playing songs for that upcoming album
Yeah.
that they were making.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, but it was around that time, and it was just such a weird thing to be trying to be a musician at the point, and then a band down the hall was on Letterman like
Yeah,
the
that's
next
really surreal.
week. You know, and that did so much not only for me, but just I think for the entire city. It was
Right.
like, holy shit, this is
We had like 3
attainable.
listening parties. And the morning of the show, I had like every local television station. And I'm in New York. They're calling me like, "Hey, can we get an interview? Can you go live?" I'm like, "No, dude. Like we're in New York. Like what
Yeah.
would you?"
We're
And so
chilling.
I was like, go to Market Bar. Go to Cons had it. Market Bar had it. There was some other one, and the people were sending us videos from all. I mean, they were all packed to the walls. I'm like, "Holy shit, this is going down in Houston, man!" It was.
So wait, you weren't being. Oh, there's a gnat in my water.
Oh, well, you caught it. You caught it.
Caught him.
Yeah, it's all right. Fucker, drown.
See him. There you go.
He's dying. You were not an accountant still at this point, right? Oh, do you need a?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I was going to say this would be ridiculous.
Right.
No, I had been. No, I had quit. I quit in 2010.
Still holding on, man.
Yeah, nope. Well, I was still born, but
Well, it was
no.
right when Tontons Golden came out. I was getting calls from all these labels and stuff because they got some traction on that, and I was like, you know what, fuck this job. And my boss came in. It was like serendipitous. My boss came in. He was like, "I don't feel like you love this job." And I was director of accounting. Like I had like 30 people under me. It was like a thing, you know. And I had, you know, great review. There was no reason for him to not want me to work there. He was like, "I don't feel like you love this job," and it was like a total office space moment. It was out of body. I had just come in and set my coffee. My secretary had just brought my coffee, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you know what, Bob? I don't like this job. I don't love this job."
Yeah.
I said, "Because I like this job. I don't love this job." He goes, "What do you want to do about it?" I was like, "I think I'm going to quit."
Yeah.
Whoa.
And at that level, you don't get to put in 2 weeks' notice because I dealt with so much sensitive information. When they know you're not going to be there, that's your last day. And so he was like, "All right, you know, grab your things,
Grab your
and
shit and
yeah,
get
grab
out."
your shit."
Let's
So
talk.
I went home and took a nap and got up and
Right.
got to work.
Wait, before you ask,
Yeah,
did,
well,
were you,
yeah.
did you have the beard back then in your accounting days?
I had a
Okay.
little beard. Actually, someone sent me a photo. Let's see if I
Little
can.
beard.
Yeah, actually, I'll show you a really good accounting photo if you want to see one.
Okay,
Someone sent
photo.
this to me last year, and I made it my Twitter like profile picture. People were like, who is this guy?
That's that guy.
Who's this guy in your thing? Look at this guy. Look at that dude.
No.
Oh, you got you. Hold on.
Press
Here,
carry,
yeah,
press
it's
cancel
just
there.
Yeah, this guy.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
I don't
Well,
see it.
that's the week I moved to Houston. That's
Okay.
a long time ago. That's
You kind of look like David Garrick.
that's
I'm just kidding.
Jesus.
He's just like shit. I'm not
that
shutting
bad?
down
Let me
anybody
just go
anymore.
ahead and
This
shut the
interview's
fuck.
over, dude.
Well, I want to talk about that the idea though of you. Well, because again, this is happening to you at the same time as it suffers. And Cam had the same story where she's like, "Look, I was in an office, you know, I had to quit my job. I want to talk.
The guitar player was at NASA. We had
At
the
NASA?
It was a NASA engineer.
Had a badass job.
We had 2 or 3 teachers. We had multiple educators. Nick was the drummer. Was like a GC Pro at Guitar Center. Been there for like 11 years.
So by no means did they not have good jobs. It was just- yeah.
Everybody was chilling, and like that was because when I walked in and said, "Guess what? You're now going to be a touring band." They're like, "We all have jobs and shit." And like his wife's pregnant, and they're getting married.
can't
and,
do
and,
that.
Like it was real life shit going on, and Cam shares that in the live show a lot, where she's like, we all had these jobs. This is our dream. We're doing our dream right now. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody
But-
really wants to be a rock star, man.
Obviously, that's
job.
what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants to do what they want or do what they love for a living. They want to figure out a way to do that. So I want to get into kind of the advice portion of this because you are a man of wisdom in a lot of ways. I think. I mean, I think you would agree with that. And a lot of people have questions for you. So I'm going to ask some of those really obvious questions that you probably get a lot.
Okay.
The first one being, how do I get my band big, man? Like that's probably what you hear a lot, right? Like how do I do it? No, we can nutshell the answer, of course, but I guess the real question is what is the best thing for an aspiring musician / creative person to do other than just focus on the art in general, to get them where they want to go, wherever that may be.
Well, I'd say for music, the one trump card that all musicians should strive for, at least, and this is harder said than done, obviously, but it's songs. If you can write a good song, you can have a career as a songwriter, even if you're not a great performer. If you can write a great song, you own the rights to your music, and you can record it and sell 1 million copies. It all comes down to the music, no matter how. I mean, I know a lot of people will be like, well, there's all this EDM shit, and those kids are just a laptop or whatever, but that's still a song.
Yeah.
Like, they wrote a song that affects someone somewhere that has money that's willing to give it to them because they made it. That's the biggest trump card. I'm not to say. I mean, I think the Suffers probably haven't written their best stuff. I think they're probably an album or 2 away from it, and they'll probably tell you the same thing. I mean, it's not like it just comes overnight. For some people, it does, and that's what makes a one-hit wonder. But one-hit wonders made a lot of money, and now they're free to make whatever art they want. That's the easy answer. The hard answer is, I can only really speak to music, so I don't really want to talk about art or anything. But
sure.
I mean, I think that hard work. I think sometimes that a lot of where the successes that I've had, particularly in the business side of it, and to some extent in the creative. I mean, I give creative advice to my artists at some levels. I don't touch the music or things like that, but marketing and things are just as important to some artists. But with all that said, it's hard work. I know that's easy. That's easy to say, but I mean, genuinely wake up and make this your job. And it's super hard to say I put in 8 hours a day being a musician.
Yeah.
It's really hard because that's not really how art doesn't come from a place of
the grind.
Of the grind. It's an art, and it comes from a different level of skill and time. But I will say, one of the things I pride myself on is I genuinely try to dot every I and cross every T. Even if it's not the most important T, I'm able to go to bed at night knowing I did everything I could do.
Right.
And I did that. I mean, I probably have worked smarter now than I ever have, but back in the Tontons day, it was working harder. I outworked everybody else. We never missed an opportunity. We never missed a phone call. We never missed an email. I Googled and searched and studied other artists. I mean, I really was a student of the game, and I think that's something that a lot of people didn't do.
What do you think that? Well, you probably answered it a little bit with that answer, but what do you think that Houston needs more of, or that Houston musicians need more of, or need to do more of, or need to do differently? I mean, what do you see that's like, I wish they should be doing this way, or doing
well, a
more
lot
of
of
this,
what I
or-
get, I don't think I don't think there's really any right answer. And there's no book. You can't take the Suffers book and go recreate it and
Right.
find
No,
success.
of course.
It's different for everybody. So, and a lot of people come to me and like, hey man, help me. I mean, I get a lot of emails. It's like, hey, I want to hire you to be my manager. Like, not like will you meet with me and have coffee? It's like demanding.
Yeah.
You're going to be my manager. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure
dude.
you would.
I was like, they worked one time, and her name was Cam Franklin, and I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. I'm joking. No, but it's not a hired service. It's such a qualitative industry. Like, you got to love what you do, and we don't let anybody touch stuff at all in any aspect of any of the businesses with any of my artists that aren't passionate about the project, because money comes and goes, and passion will keep you around when there's no money, and it'll have you work yourself to death for the passion and the love of the project. So we're really selective about the people who get to work on that. But to answer your question, step back to the question again real quick.
I guess it was just more, what do you think?
Oh, so
it's a general question.
So the general answer is, I get a lot of people. What I tell a lot of people is like, they're like, man, I just need a manager. I just need an agent. I just need a publicist. I just need a tour manager. I need a front of house. I need a thing.
This is all we're missing.
And what I tell people is, but have you ever done those things though for yourself? Have you ever booked your own show? Have you ever promoted your own show? Have you ever booked your own tour? Have you ever booked the studio time or designed a poster or tried to design shirts? Have you done
a good point.
Have you done anything? I say, because here's the deal. You don't know what you need in those people until you've actually done the job. You're like, all right, this shit's hard. And I'll tell you the reason I even share that way, because the Tontons were touring. They were grinding. They were making it happen. And I looked on all the major booking agencies' websites, and all of them have a disclaimer in the contact section that says, please do not email or call us until you successfully booked, promoted, and toured both coasts of America, because you don't know what we do, and you won't appreciate it. And so when people come to me like, hey, I want you to be my manager, I'm like, but do you know what a manager does?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so if you don't know if you got a good one or not. You don't know the questions to ask a good manager, because you don't know what all a manager, and the job's different for every band. But if you've never tried to attempt to do the job for yourself, you have no idea the criteria. You have no idea what you need from somebody, and that's where people go wrong a lot. Is they're just like, hey, look, I'll pay you to do this, and just do it, and you're like, but I'm not sure what you're really supposed to do.
They just think marketing and agents and logistics, and they
so
think
is that acknowledging that there is more to being a musician than just being a musician? Is that what that is?
No. I mean, you at some level there again, the road's different for everybody.
Sure.
But I think that you could hire whoever and do whatever and get lucky. I mean, Sufferers had never managed themselves. They just heard that I was somebody that knew what at the time I was the only dude doing it, and I'm still one of a few people that does what I do in the fourth largest city in America, So it's really easy for me to kind of pick and choose who the bands I want to work with, because I'm the only guy doing it. So I do believe I do it well, but it's not necessarily that I'm the best. I'm one of the only ones. So with that said, I would say this. I mean, because of those are the questions I get: is be my manager, be my agent, help me find an agent, help me find. And like, listen, do it for you. And I've talked to some big acts that they're on the cusp outside of Houston in other cities. That don't have those things. Like, man, do you want to be my manager? I'm like, have you ever had one? Have you ever done these duties? Do you know? I was like, take 6 months to do it for yourself. Be confident that you tried to do it for yourself. That way you know what level what to hold me to. Like, you should do this, this, and this for me. I mean, I just split ways with an artist this year that clearly I had built this team around him. I had publicists and agents, and I got him. He signed a record deal, did all these things, and was still like, you need to do more for me. And I was doing a lot, but I mean, it's a long, weird story, but he had an expectation that I didn't about his business. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to do those things. I don't do those things.
That's unfortunate, because that with those people, they're totally losing sight of their craft, right? Sure. Like, clearly it becomes about one thing, and that I know that happens when you get just a little bit, just a tiny,
absolutely,
a little tiny
That's
taste.
exactly what happened. This guy started getting traction and was like, you're not answering my call every time I call. I'm like, bro, I'm in Japan right now with the Sufferers. I won't be answering your calls. Like, please chill.
Of all the acts that you, I mean, I guess, what do you even call yourself at this point? You're more like an arbiter. I mean, what do you really do? Are you a manager? Are you a publicist? I mean,
it depends on the artist,
right? You're just you've kind of flipped the coin depending.
Well, I mean, for some bands, they don't have all those things, so I'm all the things.
Right.
I am I mean, at one level, I was everything to the Tontons. And now we're kind of back to there again, because they took time off, and we're trying to start figuring out what the next release looks like and things like that. But, some of my artists like Avery Davis, the kid that's us, I mean, I'm his consultant and his confidant and his friend and his manager, and I book his shows and promote, what's needed. But, and then the Sufferers, I mean, they want me to be, and I want to be just the manager.
You'll be that.
I want to just be the manager. They're like, dude, you do too much. Like, we got these guys that do. Stay out of this business.
Yeah.
You don't do booking. You do this. I'm like, okay, sorry. I'm just used to it. Well, that and people call me. Texas people call me for everything with that band. They don't call the agent a publicist. They're like, we know Mark. We'll just call him.
They
like,
just assume.
No, don't do that.
you
Call
guys
the agent. I don't want to fuck with this.
Someone has this job. But of those, my question was of those artists that you, whatever X, we have to fill in there. What do they all have in common? What do you think is the common string between them all?
I'm passionate about their music.
That's it.
That's it.
You're just kind. That's kind of cool to
and
know.
I have to look bands in the face that call me and like, dude, you book us all the time. You pay us good money. You come to our shows. You say nice things about us on the internet. Why don't you manage us? I'm like, dude, it's a different gear. Like, it's a different level of this thing. And it's not that I don't love you. I do love you, and I believe in you, or I wouldn't be spending time and money on you. But it takes another level of passion, and I can't describe it. I can't even explain it. I believe in somebody, and I'm willing to work for free. My artists don't pay me. I don't get paid for my artists, because if I took the cut that a real manager would take from the businesses at the levels they're at,
you're sacrificing something.
Well, I'm a detriment to their success.
Right.
Yeah.
I need them to not only get financially stable in the business, but reinvest those dollars into what they do, because that's how you're gonna. If you can make several $1,000s, you should find a several $1,000 venture that affects your business to reinvest it into. And that's a lot of the Tonton success was we reinvested every dollar. The Sufferers reinvest. They go to shows. I mean, they play shows in Europe that are one-off shows in Australia or wherever that they might break even. They really might just lose some money. When they played Newport Folk Fest for the first time, they got paid $500, and we spent $10,000 to get them there. So, but it turns out, Bob Boylan from NPR was there and saw the show and flipped out and put them on Tiny Desk a few months later. He's like, dude, he pulled his phone out at that show and said, I heard you're their manager. Where are you guys on October the so-and-so? And I was like, wherever you need us to be, Bob. So it's, if I were to take the percentage that, an average manager gets paid, we wouldn't be able to do those things. And it's, and not to, I'm not trying to air out my financial business by any means. I mean, there's other ways I make money to stay alive or whatever. But today, I mean, I'm here for tomorrow. I'm not here for today. We're working today for tomorrow. And I just want to be a participant when we're all able to be happy. But there's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And if I were to take a big cut off the top, there's some mouths not getting fed. So I'm part of the team.
But it's very refreshing to hear someone who is doing the work that you do, doing it in a frankly, an ethical way, because it's very, very often does that not happen, especially in this business. Do people kind of get, they get just kind of farmed, like, all right, this is a good song. And you're putting thousands and thousands of dollars into this one person to help you get this song out, and it doesn't end up helping you. So to hear that you're coming out of this out of only passion, like your answer was like, I just like their music. Like, that's not the normal answer for people in this, and it's really, unfortunately, it's not. I wish it was. So that's so relieving, because I don't know that that's the assumption. Just recently, we had some people get on our asses for not wanting to have them on the show. Because they thought that we were adhering to some invisible scene, like that we can only talk to these people that talk to these people
in mind, or
and it
like some
really
kind of weird...
pissed me off, because I felt like, man, I really go out of my way to try to make sure I'm trying to listen to as much as possible, and the only criteria for us in getting people on this show is if we're interested in them. Like, oh, we like your shit, we like what you're doing. So to have that, kind of thrown on us was like super. It was a really big bummer. Like, man, and I know that probably happens to you all of the time. I was going to say,
I feel like there's probably a misconception that marketing is the key to everything, or like just the shows that you're on, the people who are talking about you, and I would imagine that you probably get that a lot. And it takes back to the story you're telling about somebody who wanted you like there all the time.
Yeah. But does that bum you out, knowing that you are absolutely coming from a 100%? No, I like, this is a music thing. This is me loving music. This is me wanting to help out a person. It's gotta suck.
Yeah, no, it does suck, and I'm because I'm so passionate, I am sensitive about it.
Me too, man.
I try to be tough about it, but I mean, when you don't do, I mean, if I were to be paid the money that I've earned, like from these artists, I mean, 10 years with the Tontons, dude, like, and I helped pay for records and things like that, and bought vans and yada yada, and where the finances could help, they did, but where they didn't, I filled the hole. I mean, like, I mean, if I were to say it's a debt that the artists owe me, or even the bands I don't manage that I've booked on really great things, if I took all the money from all the situations, if I took advantage of every time I did, dude, I would be sitting wealthy. I'd be sitting great. I'd be no concerns in the world, because I work 200 hours a week and I get paid for 10, With that said, I do wear it on my sleeve a little bit because it comes from a place of honesty. I mean, early on, Quinn Bishop, the owner of Cactus, said that people, when I first got really serious about it and I quit my job and like started going every day, all day, I'd go into the store and he said, people are starting to come in here and ask me what you're up to. Like, what are you trying to pull off? That was 7 years ago. I'm still here doing the same shit, working my ass to death for no gain. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I don't put my name on shit. My Convoy group is on nothing.
Yeah,
Mark Austin is on nothing.
Not really.
No posters. No, it's a rule. Like we don't.
And there's some people that do.
We don't. So we don't promote. My company's not allowed to promote us because at no level do we want our brand or anything to exceed that of our artists, and we don't even want it to be confused that we're trying to put. I mean, there's some posters that's like so and so presented by the same name, like 3 times on a poster. You're like, dude, who's the artist here? Like, why is your name all over this shit? Things like that. Like,
who are you promoting?
Yeah, who's getting promoted by who? And you want to get some love for your money, but I don't. That's not me. And in fact, I just did the first interview like a year ago ever. Like, people have been asking me to do interviews. I'm like, man, this shit is not about me, man. Like, I think it's. I appreciate the respect of asking me to do an interview or want to talk to me about what I do, but unless it furthers my artist, I don't have any desire to talk to anybody ever. And I truly mean that. And so not only does it, so it's just me working. I just want to be in an office, grinding, making relationships and phone calls, progressing people's dreams and aspirations to be full-time musicians. That's my goal. The name of my company is the Convoy Group because we want to create convoys of artists on the highways touring between Austin and Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and New York. And that's that's the whole intent was. I bought a bunch of vans. I helped people finance their vans to help them. That was the first few things I did. There are 4 E350 vans touring America right now with my name on them.
Shit.
And so, but I didn't want anything for that, and I would never advertise that. And it's years removed now, but it's tough when someone takes a shot at what we do because what we do, we make so little money doing it. So it's not from a place of personal gain. Right. It really is from a place of the community. Right. I stopped saying music scene. I actually heard Mario Rodriguez say he said the word community instead of scene one time, and I adopted it. So I'm going to give him full credit.
I like
there.
that.
Yeah.
But it is a community because it's not just about a scene. It's not about being seen. It's not
scene
about,
would imply some sort of click. It would there's some way to get in or out. And I don't like that because you're right. There's no. I don't get paid to do this shit.
Exactly.
You just like doing it.
Yeah. So what do I have to benefit off of shitting on people just because they don't adhere to A or B? Like, who am I?
It makes you want to give up. It makes me want to give up when
Yeah.
people take shots at me or talk shit. I know there's people that talk shit. I mean, it's whatever. It's going to happen when you work yourself as hard as I do and find some success. Somebody's going to take exception to it because they're not getting. And I can tell you, I can point to the people that I know that have said shit like it's the same dudes that have been emailing me begging for help. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I know you're going to take exception.
That's precisely what this guy was doing too.
You're like, I'd love to help you, bro, but I just do not have that kind of capacity. You may book you a show or put you on something. I'll book.
I think you even gave him advice. We gave him advice, and he still took it. And remember,
this is a guy who had no. First of all, he had no music out other than a couple songs on SoundCloud. He had played no shows, and then wanted to be on the show. And I was like, well, he wanted me to cover. He wanted us to cover the show, which is not something we really do very much. So I forwarded him to Garrick. I was like, look, Garrick does this shit. He goes to 3, 4, 5, 10,000 shows a night. Check him out. And I guess that wasn't enough. And it just, like, I'm only bringing it up because we only do this because we love it. There's no what other possible motive would we have to do this? Like, this isn't. Look at my kitchen right now. Like, this is like
your studio, your $1 million.
Look at my studio, right? Like, you know what I mean? Come on.
Well,
so,
I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on it. People say something
Sure.
negative. I chew it up, I spit it out, and I go on to the next thing. I really don't let it hang me up. And I've had more than my fair share of people questioning my motives and what I'm doing to the point that I'm numb to it, and I don't care. I mean, I'm going to continue doing what I do. It doesn't affect me. I do help hundreds of musicians a month, and I'm not gonna let somebody stop me from doing that. I don't give a shit until you're doing what I'm doing better than me. Don't come at me with criticisms.
Right.
You know,
So
that's how I feel about it.
Handling hundreds of bands, how do you distribute your talents, like, to, like, everybody? I mean, I'm sure there's some bands you're more hands-on with,
Yeah.
and but in a general sense, you just
Well,
have
there's a difference. I mean, the company does. We say it. We do a lot, but our main two core competencies are artist management and promotions.
Mm-hmm.
So the promotion side of it, we book a lot of music, and a lot of people, and a lot of it is spaces that just want to participate and they want to help grow and cultivate. That's my sales pitch to an event space is, listen, if you have a budget and you want to have music, or you have a space and you're willing to have certain criteria about professionalism and of gear and stage and lights and sound, I would love to bring talent to you. And some people, now it's the point now is people seek us out and say, like, hey, we heard you're the guy that books music. Can you come do our thing? And I'll go assess it. I mean, I booked a show at the Manil today, which is fucking pretty cool for me. You know, like, the Manil's like, hey, can you help us? I'm like, absolutely. So things like that. I mean, I got to book the Super Bowl, most of the Super Bowl this year, which was 83.
That was awesome.
Yeah, like that was a career changer, dude. Like I was so proud of that when I was done. I took that job for $0. Again, just so y'all know who I am.
I would pay to take that job.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like,
they call, so the point of the answer to the question before we get off on some of the topic is, you know, I'm an accountant and I live in a spreadsheet, and I'm constantly seeking bands that need opportunities and ones that deserve it. You know, folks that are really hustling and trying to grind. I'm not trying to make them the next superstar, but I'm trying to empower them with financial means by booking them to play their talent and paying them well. And a lot of what we book is artists that don't have hard ticket histories, that can't go to White Oak and sell 200 tickets and make $2,000. So I pay them hundreds of dollars so that they can go afford to have a poster made for their other show or graduate from us. I mean, we had an incubator program at Nightingale for about a year that on Tuesdays and Wednesdays we pay a band $100. It could be your first show, it could be your 7,000th show. We do not care, but it's a Tuesday and Wednesday, which is not great nights. And the deal was we'd pay you the $100. We'd give you professional stage lights and sound. I mean, the venue won Best Sound that year in the Houston Press Music Awards. And we would feed you, and we'd give you a round of drinks, which is, if that's your first gig, that's the greatest first gig fucking ever,
Hell yeah,
right?
I just played a goddamn show.
I can tell you, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and we sound check, we study your state, we help you design stage plots. We were doing all the things to help you be pro. I was forcing bands to, I mean, we needed it, but I was like, hey, I need your W-9, your stage plot, and your bio, and your photo, and all these things.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is a stage plot? That's the bands we were dealing with, right? And so the deal is we would help them, we would kind of force them to create those things. What is a W-9? Google it. I'd say Google it, literally. Like, the advanced document was, welcome, congratulations, you're booked at Nightingale Room. We look forward to working with you. We don't care if this is your first or 10,000 show. We want you here, and here's the rules. And part of them where you have to submit all these documents. And so these startup bands had no idea what I was like. Dude, draw it on a napkin, take a picture of it, and text it to me. That's your stage plot.
That's it.
I don't care. I
Just
just want
draw
you
it
to
up.
Start somewhere. And then Doof, our sound guy, would handle them as if they were professional, if they were Metallica. He's like, come on in, let's load your gear in, let's get you on the stage, let's sound check
And
you.
that does a lot for a band.
Yeah,
It
that's
does-
like you said, it's empowering.
It does a
you feel-
lot
Because
for a
most
band.
places that would put you in that position are say like, well, you got to sell tickets.
Yeah,
You get half the
yeah.
door.
Yeah.
You get this. We're not giving. You get some Lone Stars and fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And I knew that because I have managed those bands
All the time. Happens
So we
all the
tried to
time.
create a professional environment for them to say this is how you should be treated. You know. And so we said, listen, if you come in, it's a free show. Both your shows are free. And if you draw more than 50 people, and we gauge it by the room. If there's 50 people in here, we will book you that night for a Thursday or Friday gig, and we'll triple your pay. We'll pay you $300.
I see.
So if you really promoted, so I was teaching them subconsciously that we had to have this W-9, this photo, and all these things. They would go take photos to have a photo. These are bands that had none of the assets. I have a website. It's called nightingaleadvance.com, and I have it for all of my rooms. We have little websites where you can go and you read about what your show is supposed to be and all the criteria of it. So we were training these young artists, and so a lot of them. And so what we were trying to do, I wanted to graduate you. I didn't want you to stay in the Nightingale Room. I wanted you to play a Tuesday, Wednesday, and bring 50 people, come back on a Thursday, Friday, do Thursday, Friday once or twice with us, making $300 to play for 60 minutes. And then I want you to go do a ticketed show. And we would tell,
It sets a precedence, yeah.
And so the artists that did it, that got past the first round, I would say, listen, my name's Mark, and this is what I do, and this is what we want you to do. And so we would coach them into going to this other thing. And, you know, some people didn't take it very seriously. Tuesday, Wednesday was, you know, it's a bunch of no-name artists who didn't really care to do the thing. And I'd say we had 10 or 12 bands that made it out of that first couple of rounds. And there's room to do some more of that someday. But we took a break from it because it was a ton of fucking work.
That's a great idea, man. You're clearly full of all these. I mean, you've got such a natural hustle and inclination on what works and what doesn't work, and
Well, I learned it the hard way, man. You know what I mean? Like, I made all these mistakes, and so if I can impart some random knowledge on how to run a show or how to make a poster or any of those things, why would I not?
Right.
At one point, I was looking at, people call me and say, I need a band that can draw 100 people to open a show for me. I got $150. And I started a list. I'm like, how many bands do I know that can draw 100 people or 200 people or 300 people? And it was a very small number of bands. It was a huge dip. There was this there's 5 or 6 bands at the top, and then it was down to like 50 bands that I knew could draw 50 people. Yeah. There's a couple hundred of those. And so whether I meant it or not, some level, most of the bands at the top of that list I managed.
Yeah.
So I had subconsciously, just because of my hustle and because of the band, for whatever reason, there was a disparity. And so I said, I've got to start looking for opportunities to cultivate bands subconsciously. I don't want them to think I'm trying to manage them or I'm trying to run their careers or nothing. I want to say there's an opportunity out here. There's some money. I'm going to pay you. I never book a band for free ever. Doesn't even matter if it's a charity gig. Canned Acoustica is a charity gig. Paid the bands $100 each, just because. And it was 100% charity. I still paid them an honorarium. Yeah. You know, because I don't want anyone to ever be able to say Mark Austin didn't pay me, and that's just the game. That's the way I roll the game. But so we started creating all these like free to get in shows with flat guarantee pays, and I'd give you as much hospitality and professionalism as we could afford.
That's such a good idea,
and
though.
Dude, we were up to like 120 bands a month at one point. And we're starting to kind of scale back and become more quantity.
Yeah, hands-on.
Yeah, we want to become more quantity over quality. So that's where...
Yeah, I do. I can't fit.
Oh no!
So this podcast are big. You guys are big Gilla fans, I see.
Oh yeah, I guess so. We got the poster.
You got the poster in the shirt. Do you have the G string? Do you have the Gilla?
Is there a Gilla string? No, they're sold out when I try to get mine.
As they should be. I mean, like fucking Gilla G string is very important.
So here's a funny story. A funny circumstance anyway. You're on a softball team with my dad's girlfriend, Missy Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know your dad.
Yeah.
I see the resemblance now.
Oh, that's funny.
That's cool. He's a great dude. I like your dad a lot.
Cool. Yeah, he's great.
He plays with us often.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he sits in.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if he plays.
Oh, you mean in the game?
Yeah. No, he plays.
I know he fills in when there's people who are missing or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, he's excited because I think we told him before that we were trying to get Mark Austin on.
Oh,
like,
cool.
Cool. So he was like, and so now
it's funny. The softball team when I showed up, nobody knew anything about me at all, and someone came across some article somewhere, and we're like, we have a group me session, so the chat room, and they were like, who the fuck are you? Like, started googling me. I'm like, wait, don't do that.
Like, shit. It's you and is it Mike are on the team or who's there?
Sean Brennan from Splice Records is on it. He and I like kind of inserted ourselves. He posted, was like, I want to play softball, and I was like, me too. And I shared it, and within an hour I got us on the team. John Connor is on it. He's a musician and videographer guy, local, and his wife Mary Kate Spawn is on the team. She's a musician. Who else is on our team? And then it's a kind of a bunch of people.
Is this the team that you were going to bring up? Is this what you were saying earlier to me?
His dad's softball.
Oh,
team.
yeah. His
girlfriend's softball team.
It's random as shit. Yeah, and I remember him telling me, he's like, yeah, there's a guy in Marysville got a big beard.
That's hilarious.
Like, Mark Austin? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, is it this guy? Because you're just easily to look up. He's like, oh, yeah, that's him. I was like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
That's hilarious.
I love it, dude. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And I don't even drink beer. It's like a beer league, but I'm like, I take it super seriously.
That's
like,
hilarious.
It seems fun. I've never been a huge sports fan or whatever, but playing sports has always been fun, like basketball or baseball.
Do y'all know Sean Brennan from Splice Records?
That's someone who that's another one of those like Facebook friends with.
Yeah, he's hustling. He has the day gig. I think he does finance work, and then on the side he owns this label. And he's put out probably a half dozen records in the last 2 years. He does River Revival Festival.
Okay, that's how I know the name. Right,
okay, but he had a home run last week in that softball team. Like he's like this really interesting. I've become like really close friends. I love him. I think he's an amazing person. We were kept crossing paths for years and never really got together. But he's got some really. He's got Craig Kinsey and Hank Shima.
Right.
Arthur Yoria. Gosh, who else? I think he put out the Dolly Barnes record, a few others, but then that River Revival thing, I think it sells out now. It's like 300 or 400 people, and they bring in like some really great bands. That's one worth checking out.
Stacked,
Y'all should bring the podcast go live from there.
I wanted to, and then it was just I think it was like a couple weeks after Float Fest, and we were still kind of recovering from that.
Dude, that one's a beast, bro.
Float Fest was a motherfucker.
I heard a rumor already about Float Fest. You know the guy who owns Float Fest is from Houston.
I did not know. Well,
I didn't know that.
Marcus Fetterman.
I remember that name.
He used to work for, I think he worked for Free Press, perhaps, or he and Omar are friends, or he was in a band. I don't know. It was before my time. But he and I have become friends through Float Fest now. And he and I were pinging. He shared a band name with me, and I was like, well, what?
we'll have to hear that from you after
I'm pretty sure this
we shut this off.
Marcus, I'm not telling them who the band is, so let's not.
He's not going to tell us.
You know, because you know he's listening to the podcast. You know it.
I got fucking burnt.
Oh,
so
you know what?
bad.
My tent is still. Oh, well, we did the whole camping thing. We did the whole river
y'all
thing
float?
as well.
Yeah,
we floated.
Oh,
My
shit.
tan is still uneven, but also because I don't go out. A
It
lot,
was
you know.
bad. It was bad. We had a great, but we got Nick from KG Elephant on. Had a good time.
Nice.
We saw you there briefly.
Yeah.
We saw you there, and I had to blow you off really rudely.
I saw you running with him, like,
Yeah.
we'll get back, brotherfucker.
We're gonna
We
go
gotta go.
We were camping out. We were camping out to see because that's where the trailer
I
we
was
saw.
so
where they were.
sick, dude. I was like that when I actually talked to you, and then when he walked up, I was like, probably had second degree burns, and was like just trying to
man.
just trying to willpower it away so I could get this
Yeah,
interview.
you were especially
And then the
trippy.
day after, I was I was so bad.
Yeah.
I had like sun sick. I felt like. Oh, I felt
Feels
like I was
like the flu.
dying.
Feels like the flu.
It was awful, man.
I'm familiar.
It was the worst
I
thing.
know you
ever.
would think I tan really well, but I don't.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we saw
How good,
folks
how good
like-
was that cage set, though? Fuck,
Oh,
right?
it was great.
They're
Yeah,
tremendous.
Fucking
They're
pyro and shit.
They
Yeah,
are-
that's the first festival I think I had access to a photo pit in, and that being right up front, he came right out the gate. And
Yeah.
so man, it was
He's like-
amazing.
like it's-
yeah,
that guy's a maniac.
Yeah.
He pours
he's crazy.
fuel on it.
That guy's a
You should,
maniac.
Dude, I had, in fact, it's super funny. Right as they were kind of starting to break, I saw him on a small stage. I was one of the house photographers at Hangout Fest, and I landed a photo of him walking across the crowd. Like when he first started doing it, he had
shit.
this mic cable. And I don't know if y'all remember Spin Magazine when it was in print, but it used to have 3 big 2-page photos right in the front. Like
Right,
you flip
yeah,
them
the
open,
fold out.
And I landed one of him walking across the crowd, 2-page spread.
And you got it on there.
I had been trying to get that. There's a process to submit to get a photo considered for that spread. And I've been writing for years, and the lady was like, "Don't give up. You're getting there. You're getting closer."
Goddamn.
And then finally, I landed it, and I actually showed him on the camera after. They played like a side stage, and they had this massive crowd. And I showed him the photo on my camera. I was like, "Dude, I just nailed the craziest." Because I went out in the middle. The whole band was like, he went out, and I went to the middle of the stage. Like I was standing where the singer was, because I was the house photographer. I'm like, I'm gonna get this. And I got the photo, and I show it to him after, and he's like, he was like, "Damn, dude, that's a fucking great photo." So I sent it to Spin. They're like, "Send us an invoice. This is done. You got it."
Damn.
And then the next month was the last month they printed. It was over. They never printed the magazine
Oh
again.
wow.
So I have it framed. In fact, we had them. The festival had me get a bunch of copies and stretch and flatten them out and mat them out, and we sent all copies to the band, and we had them all autographed. They got to keep a copy, and we gave it to all the owners of Hangout Festival. And I have one of them in my house. And it's like my prize is that if the house starts burning, I'm grabbing that photo.
Okay, we've been going over an hour and 10 minutes, and this is already the longest video podcast we've done by double. By double. Like,
Keep going, too.
I'm not even kidding. Because when we were audio only, we were doing hour and a half, no problem.
Yeah.
Video, we were doing like 30. We're over an hour now. I think this is good. And
Got a record. I got a record on me.
honestly, we could go 3. I could go 3 or 4 hours with you.
I love talking about this shit. I tell people that people are like, "When do you tour the band?" And I'm like,
And
go ahead.
frankly, we can turn this off and we can continue for another one if you want to. We'll figure it out. Like, because we also do another one called Drunk Table where we just drink, and this might be perfectly for that. So
Yeah,
if you-
I'm headed there.
We'll figure it out.
Sure.
But thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, man.
And
Thank you guys.
This is, again, you are a very. This is something we wanted to do from the very beginning. When we had a short list of like, who do we need on the podcast? You were top 5. So I'm happy to finally make this happen. Eric, what are you doing? Our cameraman's crawling around on the floor.
He's dedicated to his job. Let's leave him alone. Yeah,
He's like, I'm
Professional,
trying.
dude.
I'm
He's our
trying.
professional.
yeah.
I don't know if this. We'll definitely have you on again in this edition.
Sure.
This might continue right after this. We never know. But
Well, I want to plug one thing real
please
quick.
plug the fuck away.
everything.
Absolutely.
Anything.
December the 22nd, House of Blues. The Sufferers are doing their
Yes.
Harvey Relief concert. We wanted to do one early on, but they already had a fireman's charity event already booked before the flood, so we're like, we can't double up.
Yeah.
But this one we got calls from all of our a lot of really cool friends saying,
take some
"How to
time.
call us when you're ready, and we'll help." But Newport Folk Festival is sponsoring or presenting rather this event. And I don't know if you guys know Newport, but it's worth looking up. Jim James from My Morning Jacket is the headliner. It's going to be fucking magical.
Sick. I didn't know that.
Shaky Graves is performing.
Oh, relax, Eric. Eric just freaked out.
Jim James, Shaky Graves, The Suffers, Wild Child, Matthew Logan Vasquez, of Delta, Delta Spirit, Nicole Atkins, the Texas Gents from Dallas, and Joshua Asante from Massa Hines. And we'll maybe have some surprise guests. Fender Guitars underwriting it. We're going to have some really unique silent auction items like guitars and things like that. It's going to be
sweet, man.
Super dope. We need to sell it out. We're probably a few hundred tickets away from doing that, but there's tickets at Cactus Music. If you get this, there'll be some no-fee tickets. They're probably about half gone at this point. But we're trying to raise over $100,000 with this one show. Then all of it will go to the mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner's Greater Houston Community Foundation.
Sick.
And you can learn more about that foundation at ghcf.org.
Killing it.
Incredible.
I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be there. Please buy your tickets. Where can they buy at Cactus and where can they?
You can go to House of Blues website
House of Blues,
and get tickets. And if you want to save fees for right now, Cactus. And we're working on one more no-fee opportunity for everybody because we get it, and so does Live Nation. Live Nation's sponsoring the event as well. They're not trying to fleece any fans. Yeah. We want to raise as much money as we can for the festival. So,
oh. Why did you do that? How dare you?
He just plugged Ticketmaster, everybody.
Don't do that.
I don't even understand where we are right now. I'm so drunk.
That's hilarious.
All right, guys.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. This was super cool. I think what you're doing is a great thing, and whatever I can do to help in the future.
Oh my God, you could do a lot.
Let's drink beers and talk about it.
Let's do it. All right, guys. Thank you so much.